Hello everyone and welcome to a Cricket Captain 2021 tips and tricks video. I have done one of these before, but I thought today I would try and condense it down into a bit more of a shorter video just to kind of get the gist of how you should go about doing a contract process in the game, because it's one of the hardest processes to get your head around to make sure that your team is a competitive team in the game Cricket Captain 2021. This guide is actually viable for any other Cricket Captain game because these principles can be used across any other different game. Today I'm going to be showing you across Cricket Captain 2021. These are the settings I kind of go for normally. I kind of play on normal. I always play on normal. If you're new to the game, you can definitely start on very easy or easy, just to kind of get your head around how to kind of succeed in the game, what works, what doesn't. If you want to do only one match type for any certain team, I've got all the match types ticked, but if you only wanted to do the T20 team, one day team, or first class team, you could do that, or the first class and one day team, then there you go. That's the setting for that. Here you select your national team. I'm going to leave it for now. And test captaincy is if you want to start with the test captaincy of New Zealand, or if you want to earn it as you go along the career mode. Otherwise, we're going to get straight into it here. And so we're going to go into the contracts process here. First of all, it's going to tell us that before the start of the season, you need to decide which players you want to keep and which ones you don't. So here we go. So these are the expired contracts here. These are the youth players that we can look at. The main thing for the contract process is you need to look at format focus. Which formats are you doing well in? Which formats have you done well in the past and you just want to keep going? And which other formats have you struggled in? So for example, if you're doing really well in the white ball formats, in the one day and T20 stuff, then you might want to look at how can I get first class players who will allow me to do better in the first class portion of the season, and vice versa. If you're doing well in the first class stuff but not in the one day stuff, how can I get certain players that will do well in that format? Ideally, of course, you want players doing well across all formats. The first focus you want to look on when you're keeping and getting rid of players, you want to look at focusing on averages. So for example, looking here at the 3-day averages for these two players, an average of 36, not great. For the 3-day stuff, I don't think that's a keep at all. 46 for the one-day format's very good, although only played 19 games, but that looks very good. Averaging is 16, not very good. 46, that's, oh gee, that's so poor. And 26 in the T20 is not very good either. So that's okay. Maybe for the first, for the one day stuff, that's pretty good. Otherwise, it's not a great pickup there for Mercer. I will say that when you come to the contract process and you have a really good player in the past and you want to just re-sign him again, unfortunately, there seems to be some sort of bug in the game. There's two ways players can go missing, per se. One is they retire, so they're 37, 38, and they move on with their cricket careers, and therefore in the game, they retire, and you can no longer select them for anything. Or I've unfortunately had a missing player. I've had a player set a record for the most runs in a season for the team the season before, and the next season I go to sign them again, and they've actually gone missing. They're not found here in the expired contracts, not in the youth, and not in the squad. They actually just go missing altogether. They do not retire because they're too young, so I don't know where they go, but they essentially, I guess, just quit cricket. Just a heads up, you may experience missing players in the games at times. The main focus as a domestic career, doing a domestic career mode, is focusing on winning the trophies. You need to win the trophies to get more funding. The more funding you have, the easier it is to win trophies. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a spiral. So if you lose all 3 trophies, you're going to have less funding. So it's going to be hard to win a trophy with no funding, and therefore you kind of spiral a bit. And vice versa. If you win all 3 trophies, because you get more funding the next season, you will find it a lot easier to pick up the talents that you need and to be able to keep the talent that you want to keep in the following season, and therefore it's a bit easier with regards to funding. Also, when you're looking at players for the second 11 T20 stuff, you can actually push here, let's say on batting, and the other thing to check is their strike rate. And as you can see, 125, 116, not very good. The sort of strike rates you want to look for in T20 is kind of 140 plus. Anything 150, 160 with a very good average, and you're looking at a really good player because they score their runs consistently and quickly. That's the two things you want to look at. And in this case, 125 is not very quick, and 26 is okay consistency wise. You're kind of looking for anything 30 plus really, and and you'd really got yourself a good player there, but not to be on this occasion. For the batters, we're looking for anything 50 plus. If you can't find 50 plus, then 40 plus. Anything 40 plus is really good. 50 plus is where it really gets really good, especially from youth players, etc. But 40 plus is probably a good start. For example, Will O'Donnell, Glenn Phillips, those two already look very good to stay in the team. For bowlers, you're looking for a low bowling average. So a low bowling average around 20 or less than 20. So 33, 36 for Ash Hawks, not very good. 20 for Somerville, that's very good. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a low bowling average. 25, not great. 21, that's okay at first class level, but anything below 20 or around 20 should set your alarm bells off for what you're looking for talent-wise. I've also missed a key point. Second 11 stats matter. It's one of the crucial things in this game that's overlooked far too often is second 11 stats do matter. I don't know for the pre-generated players that it does matter. So for example, Robbie O'Donnell has an average of 93 here. But if you look at his record, it's not very good. So I guess in some occasions you will have players not work out. But gee, if you're looking at really good stats, then most of the time you're going to find their translation to the next level to be quite easy. So they'll just go into the next level and they'll probably succeed. They might not, but most players succeed when they have very good second 11 stats. The other thing is you want to look at all formats of your player. So of course, we're looking at Mercer and we're looking at all formats. That's why we uncovered this 46. So if we were really looking for a one-day specialist, we'd go straight to Mercer. He has an average of 46, therefore going to do well in that format. The others, not so much. And the other thing is make sure you cover your bases across your whole squad in the re-signing phase. So we're looking around, we've got keepers here, we've got bowlers here, a spinner, which is good. So that's slow left armor. You want to cover your left arm options. So there's left arm spinners. I don't see any leg spinners or off spinners here. Slow left arm off spinner obviously are these guys, but you don't really want just a slow left arm off spinner. You also want off spinners if you can. Just want to cover your bases with everything. Yeah, you want to make sure you cover your bases. So you make sure you've got keepers, make sure you've got the bowlers that you need, and make sure you've got the middle over batters and the openers that you need to cover all formats. Because if you scroll across, you'll see that some players like opening in some formats and not in others. So Briggs likes opening in the one-day format, not in the first class. As you can see, Auckland are missing a lot of middle order players because only Rodden and Chapman are the middle order players at the moment, and a lot of openers. You can also see that Martin Guptill's signed by New Zealand. The mantra to go by in the re-signing phase is change is always good. You always want to look for changing up your environment for your teams, because picking the same team every season, unless you are winning every single trophy, is always good to change your team up, to get some new players going in, to kind of juggling your players around, to always trying to look for the best way to basically fit your XI together. Because if you're struggling with batting or struggling with bowling, you kind of just want to fix what's not working until you have no fixes left. Looking at last season's stats always do help as well, because you can kind of see how the player is tracking. So for example, Tabrak, Ryan Harrison, they were not doing great, and even Somerville, he's 37, he's going to retire soon. Maybe it's time to try and find another off spinner. International availability is something that you also want to look at, because Colin Munro obviously plays in the Big Bash League, so he's not going to be available for 50% of the Auckland season. You want to look at potential call-ups as well. Is Will O'Donnell, Robbie O'Donnell, going to get called up to the New Zealand squad anytime soon based on his last season performances? You don't want too many players called up to New Zealand, as weird as that sounds. But if you want to win domestic titles, you need to make sure when you have those New Zealand players that you use them. And if you have too many New Zealand players, get rid of a couple if you can, because it's just not going to do you any good having 5, 6 players called up to New Zealand. It really hurts when all of them get selected in a New Zealand squad and you're basically left with a whole B team to try and win domestic games, which is not going to really help your domestic franchise. So really look at when you can have players called up for international duty, but if you've got too many, think about cutting that back. Axe players. I highly suggest every season that you axe half the players that need to renew their contracts, or even more. Look at the rest of your list who actually has a contract right now and go, do they even deserve a contract? Because a lot of people you contracted 2 years ago might not deserve a contract now, because at the time you kind of go, oh yeah, I'll sign this player for 3 years thinking he's going to be a superstar, and maybe 2 years down the line, maybe he doesn't turn out to be that superstar that you wanted. So you need to look at every single person's contract and say, do they deserve to get another contract? Because just because they have a contract from last year doesn't mean that they deserve a contract for this year. For example, Auckland seem to be struggling in the bowling department, average of 40, 37, 38. How many many of those players can you really carry into next season with an average of 37 and 38? Who you think would actually turn that average around, and who you think they're probably a lost cause and it's time to find some new players. For example, I've picked up these 4 players and I'm going to ditch the rest. And I don't think I'm going to go for Colin Munro just purely because of the availability issue. It's a lot of money for him to be only there 50% of the time. He doesn't play first class cricket anymore, and Munro, that's just too high for someone who's going to be there 50% of the time. Moving to the main contracts pool, the main thing you want to look for here, you want to look for battles. You want to look for the players that everyone else is looking at getting, and you can jump in and try and steal them. From this whole contract pool, the people you're looking for are the really, really good players, because the saying goes, good players out of form are still better than bad players in form. And that's exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for some really good players that you can stick to for years and years to come and really build them into quality cricketers in every single format moving forward. So for example, Morris has caught my eye here with 47 average, has 48, 28. And you know, that's not a great T20 record, but I think you can work with that 3-day record definitely. So I would definitely give him a contract for sure. Funny enough, we can actually see that Mercer has the second best record in the 1-day format in the second 11 stuff right now. Maybe he's actually not that bad after all, because the other youth players are not too much better than him. What I would normally do as well is I would actually go through one round just to refresh all the players, because all the teams sign all their players after the first round, and then from there you can get the rest of the players that they don't sign dumped into this pool where you can actually sign them up. So don't push all your eggs in the first round, because not all the players will actually be available in the first round of the contracts. For example, now might be a good time to look at the overseas players. And what you're looking for here is availability. Overseas players, you really want 100% availability across every single format, and you want them as cheap as possible and to be as effective as possible. Maybe if you actually have to pay a little bit more for them to be quality, then do so. It's important to look at how many overseas players you can actually sign, as you can see up here. So in this case, we have to pay a lot for one overseas player, because we can actually only afford one overseas player and a reserve overseas player. Although it says T20 only, 0 of 2, so you can sign 2 players to play T20s only. It's also nice to see the second 11 T20 records for all the players as well, because not all of them would have played T20 cricket, so anybody who's on debut would really benefit from that. So for example, let's go to T20 cricket. As you can see, these 2 players here from India have never played a T20 game, and even these players down here. So they're basically off the national radar completely, and those are the sort of players you want to pick up, because there's no one's looking at them. The international selectors for their country are not even seeing them on the radar at all, and therefore they can give you 100% of their availability to your team, and that's exactly what you want from your players. And that's exactly why you want to be very careful for the called up. This availability can lie to you, and that's one of the key points as well. This availability can change at any time, so it's important to go for those players who really don't have a sniff at all in their national teams, at least for the next year. Also look for your international players' holes as well. So if you need some extra bowling, look for an overseas bowler. If we don't, for example, we don't have a very good middle order players, then maybe it's good to go for a middle order player in this list here who can give us a bit more experience in that middle order. For example, I could go for Gunasekara as someone who could be my main contract, for he bowls well in the T20 format, in the 1-day format, and in the 3-day format, which would be a really good pickup across all formats, because he seems like a really, really solid all-format bowler, and he's very young, not very expensive, and he's off the Sri Lankan radar, at least in this current season. For the T20s, for example, I think I would possibly look at going for someone like Harudoy, because when I go T20 only, he's 100% available, and look at his salary, 13.5 for a T20 only player. Of course, when you do your first round of signings, that will show you the latest signings all around the grounds, and that will actually dump the remaining players into your pool and allow you to look further. For example, don't know why, but Ian Walsh has already been declined a contract by other people, and straight away here, averages 49, the best in this lot, 43, 26, and bats in the middle order, at least in these 2 formats, which is very, very important from Auckland, and thus would probably get a contract from me. When I mean look for battles, you can also see if you hover over any player, it will show you when someone else is actually offering them a contract. Doesn't look like any other contracts being offered at the moment. If a player you want to sign is about to get bought, you'll see under other offers, the other team that wants to buy them will be under here, although sometimes I've actually experienced that not to be the case. Like I'm trying to look around now for other offers on any of my players here, And I can't see that at all. If you think a player is quality and another team has put a bid in for them, if that bid's not extraordinarily high, then it might be worth actually bidding that team up to get that player, because most often when the AI teams go for a player, it kind of shows you straight away they could possibly be quality down the line if other teams also want that player. So that's something to keep an eye on. When I mean for look for battles, is look for where other teams want to sign certain youth players. Maybe you can jump in there and steal that youth player for yourself. But that's basically the wrap up of my Cricket Captain 2021 tips and tricks, guys. The main thing I want to stress is second 11 stats equals success, guys. The second 11 stats transition really well into first class level and into the test matches. I've seen it happen very often across most of my Cricket Captain saves. So that's the main thing that you need to be looking for, is really, really high second 11 stats, or second 11 stats that make your eyes go, hang on a second, that's different, you know? An average of 50 plus when others don't, an average of 60 plus, maybe an average of 14 with the ball. You'll know what I mean when you see it. You'll see something that just doesn't look the same as all the other players around them, and those are the sort of players that you want to pick up for your domestic teams. And just remember, good players out of form will always be better players than average players in form, guys. That's the main mantra to go by in this game. Otherwise, leave your queries, questions, and problems in this game in general, in the contracts process, any troubles that you're having at all with Cricket Captain 2021 or any other Cricket Captain game in general, leave them down in the comments, guys. And as always, I hope you did enjoy this tips and tricks video. If you want to see any more tips and tricks videos, let me know down in the comments as well. And until then, guys, I will see you all in the next video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye for now, everyone.